Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining this session. My name is Isabel. I am an event planner for the Reactor, joining you live from Sydney, Australia. Before we begin, we have a quick housekeeping. Please keep our code of conduct in mind. We are committed to fostering a welcoming, inclusive, and supportive environment for both our audience and presenters. While we absolutely encourage engagement in the chat, please let's keep our comments respectful and constructive throughout the session. Drop your questions in the chat. We'll be keeping an eye out for questions throughout the session for the presenter and answering live. Our session is being recorded and will be available to view on demand within 24 to 48 hours right here on the Microsoft Reactor YouTube channel. This is episode 1 of Copilot Corner, and this session is called Art of Prompting 101. I will now be handing over the spotlight over to the amazing Kirsty to enlighten us with her knowledge. Take it away, Kirsty.
You're all here for the Art of the Prompt. I'm really looking forward to. This is number 1 of the session. I think there's around about 6 live, but we've got about 11 all up. So let's just set the scene. So who am I, number 1? So my name is Kirsty McGrath. I am a Microsoft 365 adoption specialist. I am a 7 times awarded most valuable professional. I kind of live in that end user space. So for me, it's very much about ensuring that no user is left behind. I'm also the author of the M365 Wheel of Fortune. I have a YouTube channel and I have websites and all sorts of fun out there if you want to look me up. What we're going to do is we're going to jump over now into a little bit of the art of the prompting. So when it comes to the art of the prompt, some of the things I'm going to go through is the, what, why, understanding some of that, the taxonomy behind it. I'm not diving into, in this session, the physical typing and doing. I've got a lot of sessions to do that with you across all the different topics. But half of the challenge is going in and actually knowing what you should do, how you should do it, and why you should do it. And I see this right from the end users all the way through to the technical. And if you've connected with me on LinkedIn, I recently did a bit of a blog post around all the challenges that we're seeing, and I'm seeing it right across businesses. So I want to just dive into a few things that will actually help you. And as we know, it's here, whether we like it or not. And when I'm dealing with a lot of end users, They kind of go, I've not used generating AI. And I'm going, hang on a second, are you asking Siri? Are you watching certain things that Netflix might actually tell you to watch? It's like it is embedded in our everyday life. And a lot of people are a little confused sort of what they would do with it. And times are actually shifting and changing. Now it's growing really fast, okay? Really fast. But the problem is our adaptability is not quite as fast. So we're getting a real gap in our skill sets. And what we're also seeing is that without some change management, some training, and some understanding that sits behind it, then we're kind of struggling a little bit. So we're often not providing adequate training around our Gen AI right across industries and businesses. So I am here to help you, because what I want to try and do is get you to the point where you've got an aha moment. It's actually a physical brain spike that goes on. When you're going aha, you're kind of aligning a certain process and you kind of go, oh, cool, brain spike. And I love getting you to that point. So hopefully you get, a few of those along the way. Now, please feel free to drop into chat any questions and I'm happy to answer them. Now, one of the things that's actually come up that we found, that on average it takes around about 11 minutes of time savings, is where it gets to where most people feel that AI is actually useful to them. It's when they get that breakthrough moment. And, that's going to take approximately 11 weeks. So if you're doing all these really short and sharp pilots within your business, you're going to struggle a little bit. Now, when we get to that point, is looking at 4 key areas, which is like work productivity, enjoyment, work-life balance, and the ability to attend less messy meetings. I would love to attend less meetings. And in fact, with Copilot, you can, because when we get into the team side of things, you'll start to see. So the statistics actually say that on average, it's around about 14 minutes a day. So the average individual, it's about an hour a week. Now, you have to think about that. There's a lot of people that might be frontline that aren't necessarily using it. But when you start to go into the office, things start to change. Now, personally, it's saying like 3 to 5 minutes per day, 3 to 5 hours per day, easily for me. I would say sometimes I've even saved myself within one day by doing, 20, 30 minutes of work with Copilot. It saved me 24 hours of work, because there are different ways that you can use it to be able to generate off the back of a ton of recordings, for example, collaborate, pull together all of this content, go through, have a look at it all, and give me some feedback on it. So I know I've done a lot of work in there. Now, where are you going to find it? Look, there's a great video, and this information I can actually provide and make sure that it's there as part of the recording with a link, in the Copilot system explained video by Microsoft. It kind of goes through a bit of the in and the out and the in and the out and where it's going, and semantic index and large language model. And I put this in front of the end user and they just go, wow, really, we can have it where it's embedded in our applications, and that comes with a license. It looks at your data, goes out, it looks at a large language model, it goes to the web, and it kind of comes back and gives you a response in its raw basics. Okay, that's the real raw basics. But like anything, and if you do have a license, because you've got your free versions, and I'll unpack a lot of that in the next session, if you've got your different versions, but say I do have a license and it is looking inside my business, then really we need to also make sure that we've got good quality information that it's looking at, let alone all the compliance. This is the governance, and there's lots of stuff. Now, I'm not diving into that because we're talking productivity. Now, in my infographic that I've actually got out, this, Wheel of Fortune, as everyone likes to call it, I've started putting in the different things, for example, that Copilot is like, you're going to find it inside a 365 environment. So if you've got like a E3, E5 type license, this is where you're going to start to see it. Now, that's a little different than if you're just using chat. Okay? And as I said, we'll talk about that next time. So I will eventually focus across a lot of this technology for you. Okay, so over the coming weeks, we're going to deep dive into a lot of these areas in 30-minute sessions. But there's a lot of endpoints that you can go to, and knowing where to go to ask the right question is really important. Because I had recently, we were doing promptathon workshops, and someone was trying to create something, was very much in the creative space, and they were doing it in Word and wondering why it wasn't actually doing what they wanted it to do. It's like, well, actually, you're probably better off to do that in Whiteboard or OneNote or Loop, or even just through your browser, for example. rather than trying to do it in Word. So knowing where to go is half of the battle as you start to work your way through the various applications. Okay, now getting into things like the art of the prompt. Let's start to dive into it a bit more. Now, the challenge that we're actually seeing is a lot of people are going to do a search on the web. Now, we're caught in this kind of search mindset where it might be, let's talk about we're going on a holiday. I've just come back from New Zealand. I've just been over to the Microsoft Redmond. I've got all the Copilot t-shirts and all the fun stuff from being over at the Redmond campus. Now, if I was going on a holiday and I'm going to plan for New Zealand, if I was doing a search, it would have just been, give me the top 5 attractions in Auckland, for example. And that was just like one catchphrase. It is not like that when we're now dealing with generative AI. It has changed. We could do that very simple sentence and it will give you a response. Now, if I had put that sentence in and then I went, and help me in regards to disabilities because I'm taking a disabled person with me and they have some challenges, then I'm kind of starting the search all over again. Now, if, for example, we look at it a little differently, because we can have an iterative conversation. It's an actual conversation piece. So, for example, if I walked into a coffee shop and I said, can I have a coffee? And I walked away. Coffee and walk away. The challenge with the coffee and walk away is they would go, hang on, how do you want your coffee? Do you want small, medium, large? What type of coffee? Do you want a latte? Do you want a black? Do you want milk? What type of milk? Do you want hot milk? Do you want cold milk? There are so many things that you want to take away. Eat it here. Eat it, drink it, drink it here. So mind you, some of those coffees are so strong, you probably could eat it. So what you want to do is we're having a conversation with them. It's a back forward, back forward, back forward. So Gen AI gives us a back forward, back forward. It's a bit like a choose your own adventure. I'm a grandma. So for me, there is the ability for me to remember the fact that I could read these books and choose where I jumped to. And a bit like Copilot, we can kind of narrow it in and keep going down, 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 asking questions, or we can go off on a tangent, or we could go out and go elsewhere. Now, you can do up to 30 kind of iterative prompts within one conversation. This is the back forward, back forward. But I want you to look at doing something like treating it like it's your intern or your graduate inside the office. Or maybe it's like you're walking up and you're talking to an executive assistant. You're not going to tell them to just do a memo. You're going to kind of give them some guidance. We talk about like those school assignments and we're dealing with students. A teacher doesn't just say, go away and give me an assignment on Napoleon. They don't go, well, what was he doing about this? Give some structure. Where can you find more information? So if you've got an intern or a grad in your office, you're going to give them and guide them. Like, where do they go? What do they got to do? So we got to treat them a little bit more like that. Okay. Now, one of the things with prompting, because we're moving from that command now over to conversational, and with that comes some grounding rules. Microsoft have provided for us the GCSE. This means I've got a goal, context, source, and expectations. What do I want to do? Why do I actually need it? Why do they need it even? Where do I need to look in terms of the source, and how do I need it? I'm going to dive down under that just a little bit more, okay? Because this is something that we're out there and you might be fairly familiar with, for example, but let's have a look. So when I get into best practice prompting and I get into the master prompting side of things, I start to go, and as part of the GCSE, I break it out just a little bit more, the role and the target audience. And when I say I'm going to be, I'm the IT manager and I'm speaking to the CEO, I can be anything that I want to be. I might be the managing director of my company, but instead I'm going to pretend that I'm the student with no knowledge. So you can be whoever you want, talking to whoever you want as an output, okay? A source is all the relevant material that you might want to point at. So it could be I'm going for a job and I want to have both the job description and I want to have my resume. This morning, I spent the morning with a ton of students in high school trying to help them to understand where they could use Copilot to apply for jobs. And what did that look like? What kind of colors could I actually wear? No prompt is a bad prompt, by the way. Okay. A task goal. Now on the task, it's a lot of verbs that then come into play. And I'm going to dive into some of the things around the verbs because there's like over 190 verbs you could play around with. The topic, so what is the actual topic? Are you trying to, are you creating a strategy type document? And you need then the tone, it needs to be formal, or the inclusive modifiers like, community, value, friendly. Let's dive into those, okay? So the taxonomy. So the taxonomy that actually comes with AI. The very first one. So here we've got kind of coming in and we've got our mega verbs. Microsoft give you some mega verbs to be able to work with. They're fairly stock standard type kind of verbs. And the mega verbs are things like, and let's jump to it because we're going to jump around a bit. The verbs are things like add, ask, edit, learn. You've got to drop down on tasks and they're available for you. But there are so many more. I particularly love things like paraphrase off the back of meetings. Paraphrase that meeting for me so that I can and compare it to the meeting that I might have had, with Microsoft about that client, and compare and create an email for me. And so there are lots of different verbs that come into play, not just the edit and the create and all of that kind of fun stuff as we go along. Let's go have a look. Next one, business sources. Get rid of there we go. Business content sources. Is it you're bringing and you're looking at that Word document? Is it going and opening up your PowerPoint template to start with to do your work, for example? Are you using your Word document to create your PowerPoint? Like what are the different sources? Maybe you're loading up your job description to the web to play around with it. Do you want it to read the page? There are lots of different sources that we could bring in, pictures and documents, all sorts of different type of documents. But then we get into something like models and concepts, and this can get a little bit more challenging. Every single industry has its own models and concepts. Now, we're fairly familiar with maybe things like a SWOT analysis, strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threats. But the great part about AI is it's opening up all these potential opportunities across industry. And sometimes we don't know the words that we need to put in to get the right output. So, for example, when I was dealing with the students today, it could be the CAR and or the STAR methodology around HR for behavioral-based questions. The average person might not know that. Or maybe you're in the design space, and in the design space, you're dealing with lots of different types of pictures. So if I said to you, create me a Lego lady, with the design and the picture for Sydney. I'm in Sydney. My weather here is really pretty today. I'm in Sydney and I want that as a backdrop and I want it to be a Lego person. But if I said create it as a claymation, that's like Wallace and Gromit. Do you know the words that are required for a particular line of business in that industry? Now, models or theories, this is just like, it's really going to be small. There are so many, and this is just a couple. So many different models or theories that come with each industry. This is just an overall role. There's lots of different types of roles. So have a look into, and you can ask Copilot, what are some of the methodologies or the roles or models that I could actually use to get the best possible output when I'm talking about HR, for example, okay? The different document types. Now, we're fairly used to, for example, these type. Give me a contract. I want to create some FAQs, or give me a step-by-step guidance or a business case or a resume. But did you know in Office, if you go File, New, and then there's a ton of templates, all the different types of templates. In fact, you can look them up online even, or even in Excel or PowerPoint. They are all template types as part of the taxonomy that you can ask for. And Copilot understands, okay? So that's some of the great part about this is there's so many things that you could do as a document type. An output format being paragraph, bullet points. It can be put it into a table. I love things in tables. I will do the, show me the last 5 days of important emails whilst I've been away, where I'm in the toolbar, ignore the CC, do it in these kind of columns, and I want to make sure that it's in this kind of format in a table. It's so much easier to read. Okay. Now, when we get into tones and styles, this one's just that little bit different. We're very used to doing things like formal, informal, casual. These ones here, neutral, formal. Okay? Now, there are lots of different combinations. Microsoft even give you the do it as a poem, as a style. But we can do combinations of tones. So, for example, I often will do, I'm pretty enthusiastic as an individual. So I'll go, give me something that's enthusiastic and inspirational when I'm, talking as part of my speech. You could create other ones as well. I had someone recently saying, I've got to email the ATO and I'm not quite sure and it's all a bit messy and I'm helping a client. And I go, why don't you use the word mercy? There are different things that you can actually use along the way. Yes, James, I will certainly be making sure that you can have this as an output. Okay, next one. Let's go back. Tones and style, people and username. So if you do have a license, you can do your / and then go and find me all the emails in regards to this person. And can you give me a bit of an idea of, what we've got to get ourselves across, or a summary, or a whatever the case may be. Okay. Then we get into roles and personas. And we did talk about that. I'm the manager or the CEO and I'm talking to, or maybe you're a chef and you're doing, a modular student piece. And it's actually for students that have no experience whatsoever. Or are you a senior chef and these guys are, they've had at least accreditation for 5 years. You're going to get a very different context depending on what you ask. And that's that experience and age. Okay, so the roles and personas. Are you a HR manager in the manufacturing industry, for example? Are you an engineer, and however you deal with roads? Okay, we've all got a very different place we play. That all comes into play. Age and experience, how long? Time and time ranges. Once you added Copilot, if you've got a license and you put it into your environment and you've got a ton of information, it reasons over it, not just the last day, hour, week, month. You could even go, show me the last year. What I want to do is I'm creating my performance review, for example. And can you look at the last year? And in my performance review, give me my strengths and weaknesses. Have a look at last year. Okay, get the source. Have a look at last year's and tell me where maybe I have missed the mark. If you look at all of the last year's email, chat, meetings, okay, all the things and documents, the things that I've done. Have I actually met the KPIs? Where do I need to improve? Am I working too much out of hours? Lots of things you could do, time ranges. Now, human languages. So for those that are joining, there's like 27 different languages that you can actually pull from in human languages. I'm Australian, so I'm very, you can do the, yeah, very oka. It's like, yeah, no, yeah. Human languages. However, if I ask for it to do in Australian English, I'll get a throw a shrimp on the barbie. Not that we call it a prawn here, but it's a US kind of understanding of what the English is. Now, the closest that we've got at the moment is UK English. So if you're finding you're getting a return that's not quite correct, there are other languages that you can use. So look them up and I can, that will make a real difference to the output. There's also computer languages and scripting. So are you wanting to do Python? Are you wanting to do JSON? Are you wanting to do, C? All those different type of scripting languages and coding that you could do. Dedact and redact. It's like, can you please, ensure that there's no personal information throughout this document? Like clear it out of, make sure, or show me where all the personal information is, for example. Then there's things like demonstration data. Okay. So demonstration data, for example, I was recently working with a HR team and I needed to come up with an Excel document with a ton of information. So I said, can you please give me 1,000 lines of data? And it's in regards to the cost of moving people around the country. And I want to have these kind of columns, for example, around the costs. And I go, sure, let me build out that Excel spreadsheet for you. You want to give me a bit of a demo data? We can ask it. Can you give me an example of a resume that's actually and good practice type thing? You can ask for demonstration data. So we've gone through document types. We've gone through the different tones. The very last one that was on the list that I talked about in that kind of GCSE was inclusive modifiers. So inclusive modifiers are words that we can use to change some of those tones. It's a little bit different to being formal and informal. An inclusive modifier is when we start to, for example, I'm the executive in an organization and I'm creating a strategic document, or I'm doing the roundup of the year for an all hands or a town hall, and I want to make sure that my speech is in a tone that actually talks to my organization like we're a family. I want it to be positive and open and friendly. I want to make sure that they understand that they're valued. Make sure it's from a genuine voice. They're all different ones that you can actually put together to be able to help you to change the tone of the output. And that makes a real difference. And if it's going a little bit too flowery, you could go, can you please make it more formal, or make it less caring because it's gone over the top. And sometimes it can go over the top. But you can use all these different words to be able to help and support you. So now if I look at a prompt that I'm going to go and do, for example, in here, as I said, there's kind of no real bad prompt, because remember, you can have a conversation like 30 times back and forward, back and forward. In fact, Copilot will even give you examples of things that you might want to ask. You've got little buttons that you can push, and you can just keep going, oh, I like that one. Oh, I like that one. It takes you down a different path. But for example, if I do the GCSE here, so I could have just said, can you give me some good interview questions? It's not a grade and it's not in context, but it is a question. And I go, sure, here are different questions. Can I help you with anything else? And you kind of go, well, that didn't really return what I wanted. And in this instance, I'm actually going to say, help me prepare for an upcoming candidate interview for a new AI engineering role in our IT department by creating that list of questions. So I've got a goal and I've got context. That's still very light on the goal context. So a little bit better would be going into, well, who are you? I'm a HR manager. I'm preparing for a candidate interview for our AI engineer role in IT. Okay. Now, prepare appropriate questions for the candidate, and I want to be prepared during the interview. So it will give you a very different response. But when we start to include things like sources and the expectations around it, this is when it starts to change again. So we got the same thing again, HR manager, candidate interview, engineering role, IT, all blah, 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 same. But now what we're doing is go, I've got the candidate's resume, and here's that position job description. So now I want a comprehensive list of questions, joining those together so I can determine their fit for the position. Now, what it's going to do is look at both documents and go, they are missing this, or they're missing that, or they're strong on this but seem to be weak on that based on their resume. You might want to ask these questions, or maybe there's gaps in the resume, for example. Now, I could also put into that those methodologies. Go, give me a list of questions that are behavioral based, a comprehensive list, but maybe it's behavioral based, like CAR or STAR, for example. Okay, bring in the theories. That's going even a little bit further. Okay. Not on this, but you can go further. So recently I was over at the Microsoft MVP Summit. This is all the women in Microsoft 365 as we stood around at the Microsoft sign. So I was actually away, and prior to that, I was in New Zealand presenting at a conference in New Zealand. So I've kind of been away for 2.5, close to 3 weeks. So when I've come back, and I did do this after New Zealand, when I came back after being in the US, I did a prompt. This is me with Scott Guthrie, who is the Vice President of Cloud and AI. I asked him to come down to kind of my level. So he's going a little shorter. But a prompt that I can actually use. Now, I could have actually said, when it comes to being productive, for example, I could have give me a summary of what I should know from the last 6 days. Or just look at my team's inbox. It's full. Give me some actions pending my return. Put them in a priority, keeping it really kind of simple. And over time, I get ones that I copy and paste. I keep a OneNote book of all of the prompts across all of the different applications to help me out, things that I can just copy and paste. I also do sticky notes in Windows, so I've got them there syncing across devices as well when I'm doing demo. So I get a much better response, and I just copy and paste this sort of thing in all the time when I go into Microsoft Teams or chat or Outlook chat, or just go to my browser and I'm doing chat. I go then summarize the last 6 days and put them into those bullet points, and then referring or back to it. So it's going, I want to know, exclude this, give me out urgent first, and I want it in a table format, and these are all of the columns. Now I get something that gives me a much better structure. The information I get back, it includes all of the attachments. It is a lot easier for me to then work with. So as part of that prompting best practice, please note, be polite, because basic etiquette when we're dealing with generative AI actually really helps you in regards to your output. It mirrors your level of professional and clarity and the detail and the inputs you provide. And this is my Siberian kitty cat. Get in there, explore, try different prompts, structures and approaches. It can really fuel creativity. If you've got a blank page, there's nothing like asking Copilot to give you a hand and get started, or finding out where the gaps are in your thinking. Ask it, is this okay? Have a look at the grammar, work out, does it look better? Try it in different ways. If it didn't work the first time, it might just need another way of coming at it. A single prompt doesn't necessarily give you what you want. It can be less than ideal. It's quite a dynamic and interactive process. So we want to try and get in and solve sometimes things that are a little bit more complex. Initial prompt is just the beginning. You need to get into an iterative kind of way to make it a little bit better. So test and observe those kind of outputs and fine tune your approach. Go and have fun, because you really can. Create pictures, find out information. I do cake decorating, so I'm often going and even asking it like recipes or ideas, or can you create or generate a picture? Also, Copilot is not autopilot. It works alongside you. You really don't need to put your helmet on. This is my son. He's becoming a commercial pilot. Really, ultimately, the person always needs to be in that driver's seat. So check your facts, review, and modify. It's there to work alongside you. It is there to unleash some creativity, perform tasks faster, so that it frees you up to get into the more quality type work. Okay. Now, there's lots of further information. I'll be providing a lot of this for you. Don't forget, we have lots coming up in the sessions. I will provide this documentation. I've got some of the art of to help you out. Questions, the scenario libraries. There's great training platform. Microsoft Learn has got a ton of content if you want to do further learning, guys. So plenty in there for you to be able to work with. There's the blog. Here is my infographic wheel if you would like a copy of it. But I'd like you to remember ultimately that the true power of this in terms of Copilot lies in sometimes changing the way you work, and that's really up to you. That's not about Copilot, that's about a behavioral piece. So hopefully that's helped you out a little bit in terms of some of the art of prompting, because what you'll find is we will apply a lot of this in theory. We need to kind of start from the theory, and as we go on to all the productivity sessions, I will then show you how to deep dive into it. So I really look forward to having you come and join, learning a little bit more along the way. Thank you very much for being here. Hopefully you've enjoyed it, and I will make sure that I've actually shared this particular presentation with you. So thank you all, and I will drop some of this into chat as well. Okay.
Thank you, Kirsty. That was a really good session. If I may add, you actually had people from all over the world joining us today. You had someone from Switzerland. You had people from Sydney as well. So I don't know about you guys at home, but this was a great session, Kirsty. And like she mentioned, this was just episode 1 of many we have coming up in the year. So I will just pop the banner in if you guys want to register. It is aka.ms Copilot Corner. And Christy, I believe you're going to drop the resources in the chat. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
I just tried to post something in, but it failed to go through. So I'll as a link, it didn't allow the link. But what I'll do is I will create a quick, a shorter. Maybe it could be a bit too long, so I can actually create a little bit of a Bitly link for you, and we can put it. I can put it in there in just a second if you like.
Yeah, of course I can do that. Because some people in the chat were asking if you would be sharing the resources, so I think this would be really useful for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I can do that. And look, if anyone's got any questions, please feel free to ask them. I'm happy to answer some questions around some of the best practice that we're actually seeing. And I can having a look. I don't think I've seen any so far. I've been keeping a bit of an idea, having a bit of a look at it, but haven't seen anything yet.
Oh, good.
Okay. No more questions.
No, just a lot of grateful people. I mean, like, thank you, Chrissy. Thank you.
Very good. And I'm just trying. I've tried putting the link in a couple of different ways. Unfortunately, it's not allowing me. But what I'll do is that if you want, I'll just read it out. It's lowercase bit.ly. Actually, what I can do is probably present my screen. And I can put the QR code, and you'll be able to scan the QR code. How does that sound?
Genius.
Okay, let me just copy it. I'm going to come back, present my screen, bring it back in, paste. Here we go. Great big QR code so that you can have it. Let me go present and share screen, and I'll bring it back up again. Go entire screen and share. There we go. That might make it a little easier because it's not wanting me to put things into chat. So that will just help out. There you go.
Lovely.
So if anyone wants to, yeah. So there we go. Instead of typing out a prompt. So the link is there. It's bit.ly, so bit.ly. I can actually probably paste it on the page if you're not wanting to use your phone. Let me just copy it as well. You'll see it here. Coming back. Copy, and I'll just bring that back up on the screen for you. Paste. And I'll make it a bit smaller, like yay. So if you type now, you'll have to make sure that you do a capital M, a capital A, and a capital P for it to work if you're going to type it in, if you're not just using the QR code. And I'll make sure that it's actually, I'll do it this way, because if it's not allowing me to do the link in chat, I'll make sure it's there for all the future sessions for you to help out.
Thank you, Christy. And I think if we are unable to figure it out today, we can discuss afterwards a way for us to have that link ready to go next week. But hey, I think it's a great reason as well for you guys to join us again next week for the second session. Sorry, got my dates all mixed up. Is it next week?
It's a fortnight. We're generally running them. Yeah, we're generally running them nearly each fortnight. So yeah.
Beautiful. Well, I'm just going to allow a couple more seconds in case anyone has any questions. About 30 seconds. And in that case, if anyone happened to miss any part of the session, don't worry, because like I mentioned at the beginning of the session, this will be available in 24 to 48 hours on the Reactor YouTube channel. So you can go back, review the session. Maybe you will have more questions to come back to Christy and be like, hey, I was wondering about this. So don't worry about it. You'll be able to rewatch the session whenever you want to. And in that case, Kirsty, I think it's time for us to end the live stream. But thank you so much for joining us. I think you're a fantastic speaker, and I've said this to you multiple times. Thank you. And
You're
thank you
very
to all the
welcome.
viewers.
Thank you to everyone that came along and listened, and hopefully we'll get stuck in and do the actual physical typing exercise and playing and demos starting in a fortnight.
Amazing. Thank you,
Okay.
Christy, and thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your day. See ya.
Okay. Bye all.